are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Riel and Sebastian, thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to jump right in if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
All right, let's start with first of all, Sebastian, we'll start with you. How did you guys come in contact with the band YACHT?
It's not a super glamorous story necessarily. We heard through kind of industry contacts that somebody was interested in making a artificial intelligence album and wanted to document the process. And I think based on the type of projects we work on and the artists we collaborate with, that was something that piqued our interest. And we thought that, once we met with them, it really clicked. And that became something where we felt that between all the creative energy of all the people involved, it would make sense for us to direct this film and kind of harness the energy of the band, and that we would be the people to bring it to the screen.
Of course, we're talking about the documentary here, The Computer Accent. It's all about the making of the band YACHT's album, Chain Tripping. Riel, for you, talk about you and Sebastian, your creative process in capturing this very unique record being made.
Yeah, I mean, like often in nonfiction films that like follow a journey, and whether it's like a sports team to a win, or you sort of don't know where it's all going to end up. And so we began, very early in like 2017, and just started to document the band going step by step and meeting with these different engineers and with Google and with different people who work in the space. And so we kind of felt like the audience in a way, because we didn't know anything about this stuff, which is why we wanted to do it in the first place. But we're sort of learning along the way as the band is learning. And so, it was really a journey where we didn't know where it was going to end up. We didn't know where the technology was at. We didn't know if they were going to get the help they needed, or figure it out, or give up, or what have you. So it really wasn't one we could kind of plan from the beginning. It was constantly pivoting to like what was going to happen next.
Yes, I can imagine from that description, Sebastian, the creative process had to be fascinating, because I imagine you're hoping for the positive outcome of a record being there, but there's also the drama of there not potentially being a record there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had the spectrum from this would be scandalous and people would be very upset that, I mean, there was a moment where we really wrestled with how to reveal the information, right? That would we release an album and then after the fact tell people, oh, actually this thing that you've been enjoying is made by AI, or would we put it up front? And that was a big part of really thinking about the framing of it. And so we had the spectrum of perhaps upsetting people to the spectrum of perhaps not even having a record, like you said. And so we were open for every possibility, but we knew that by following them along, the goal was to record all the conversations with engineers and all their questions, and how they would learn would be a window for people to learn about what is state of the art of this AI music world from 2017 to 2020 or so. And it really, I think, can be cataloged in years, because this stuff moves so quickly. As the film says, the stuff that you needed, direct access with Google engineers for within a year or two is a common plugin to one of the biggest recording softwares. So it really was about creating a time capsule and being ready for whatever could happen.
Riel, one of the things that I love about this documentary is, as much as this is about capturing a band trying to make an AI album, it's that human element, the band themselves relearning how to be musicians in order to play this.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, to like what Sebastian was saying, I think in the beginning, they didn't know where the technology was at. Neither did we. And they thought maybe they could just feed everything they'd ever done into a computer and voila, there'd be an album. And they'd have to kind of wrestle with putting that out. And instead, they're getting kind of bits and pieces of things and trying to fit them into their process. And again, like we speak about it as a mirror, like they're seeing the things they like in what the AI is creating for them, and like bringing that in. So it really is it becomes, it's a tool. It's no longer going to do everything for them. It's just kind of inspiration, or one level up from inspiration.
Indeed, it's a fascinating dynamic between the band and the AI and the questions they're answering. But for you, Sebastian, and for you both for you on this question, approaching this as documentary filmmakers, what were your thoughts on how you wanted to capture this and how you could reflect what the band is going through in the way you're making this documentary?
Well, yeah, I think that's what posed one of the biggest challenges, is that so much of this is black box, right? A computer does millions of decisions a second in a little tiny microchip with electrons in a box that we can't see, on a screen that, you know, can only be compelling for moments at a time. And so we had to come up with ways of really thinking, how do we visualize this information in a digestible way, and also in a way that can be, you know, enticing. And so that was one of the biggest challenges there. And I think, you know, the music side of it has certain kind of expectations in terms of what you capture from concerts to recording studio. And I think that those were the places where we got to have the most fun, maybe playing with conventions or leaning into them. And something like recording the studio in Marfa was really great, because that's some of the, you know, creative process writ large that we got to capture. And I think that stuff is yeah, some of my favorite.
Yeah, Riel, so I have a question for you approaching the documentary aspect of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we, again, didn't know where this was all going to take us. And I think we knew it was going to kind of jump around from space to space. And I think we decided on different formats as a way to ground the audience into what space they were in. And that kind of helped us guide us, or at least ground how we would edit the film. You know, I think trying to tell a story that's a journey, you're always kind of, as filmmakers, you get kind of wedded to what actually happened in which order of things, instead of what is most compelling or most informative, you know, and we tend to get bogged down in the details, and there's a lot of details about machine learning and all that, and trying to strike that balance between what's going to bring the audience in on the journey, or what's going to make them feel, you know, sort of alienated because it's over their head. Like, trying to strike that, I think, was, yeah, probably the biggest challenge is how can we let the audience go along with the ride, feel informed, feel like they learned something, but still be, you know, we know a lot of the engineers that we interviewed and worked with on the film. We certainly want them to see it and feel like we're doing it justice, that we're not just sort of like reducing it down to its bare minimum. We wanted it to work for all the levels, you know. So if you already know some of
scandalous,
yeah, right. So if you already know about this stuff, you're not feeling spoon fed, and if you are not familiar with any of this, you feel like you can follow it along. So
one of the discoveries that for me watching this was that there had been somebody who'd made a movie in through AI. They generated their own script via AI, and you guys talked to him a little bit about that, and the band talked to him about his process. But Sebastian, for you, experiencing that for the first time and seeing somebody had done that, what was that like? How strange is that film to watch?
I mean, what I think at the time before we said yes, I think we were vaguely aware of that film. And I think I had seen it, but I think it was just another point in the matrix of, there's something interesting going on with the intersection of AI and the arts, and it hasn't fully been explored, and there's a lot there. And I think kind of actually writing off what Riel was talking about, that the film itself had so many fascinating wormholes and diversions it could go through. But there's this kind of mantra that I've developed of just like, films are short, and they're really an entry point into this whole intersection. And this whole intersection is so rich that hopefully it spurs people into being curious about discovering their own little wormholes that take them down their own, maybe more specific interests, to see what's going on in this space. AI technology has just gotten so much more accessible to more people in the last, even, I would say 2 years, but 5 years, absolutely. And I think the film touches on it a bit. You needed to have, multinational billion-dollar corporations at your back if you wanted to do anything. And now a lot of these things are really as simple as web apps, and there's companies like Runway and others that are making tools that are, really pitching themselves as creating kind of the next Photoshop, the next, and I use that as a metaphor, like the next prosumer consumer software platform that can allow people to really touch these algorithms in ways that suit their creative ambitions.
Thank you. Yes, I'm actually having a lot of computer problems today, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
We were talking about, I was talking about the ethics of using AI in art, and Riel, you were addressing that, and you did address that with a couple of speakers in the documentary who I find fascinating is that just their sort of their job, or they've made it their job to just sort of think about these things.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the band kind of discussed that as well, like the personal ethics they have in, debating whether to engage in this technology or not. And, I think I certainly have a lot of personal opinions about how technology is unleashed on the public. We have the whole approval process for drugs and, the FDA and clinical trials, but TikTok just gets put out, and the repercussions are kind of felt much later. And I think, I think there needs to be deeper conversations about the technology that we are releasing, but at the same time, I'm certainly not up to banning it all, or trying to prevent the future, because you can't. So I think going in eyes open, I think is what you need anytime you approach a new medium or technology. I can't wait personally for the day where someone can make a whole Marvel X-Men movie in their basement with just a computer that doesn't have a hard drive failure. That's exciting, having the technology be able for a wider public to be able to engage in making music or making film, and not necessarily having the access to education or what have you. Like, being able to come up with new, fresh ideas, I think is incredibly exciting. But we have to be aware of the impacts that it might have in other parts of our society.
Mm. And that, Sebastian, it brings me around to a question about, or talking about the title of the movie, The Computer Accent. I love that title. I don't exactly know what you mean by it, but from my interpretation of it, it's like it's the computer accent on humanity, essentially, these humans who are taking technology and making it part of what they do. But talk about, for you, that title.
Sure. In full transparency, have to give credit to the band, as that was kind of their working thesis or maybe essay kind of about where we are in technology right now, that it doesn't work well enough to be a native speaker of human. It has this heavy accent that takes what would maybe be imperceptibly human and makes it noticeably off, makes it noticeably other. I think that was the investigative impulse that kicked off the whole project, and it was a concept that we couldn't really shake as a title. But I think ultimately we're not even quite there to a degree. But there certainly is. I kind of like your reading of it. I think that's interesting, actually, that the computer's language is us, kind of, and as the AI is kind of unleashed on us, it has this reaction to us, society, or our emotional states, how we organize things, right? And that exists by downstream from changes in the algorithm, right, or changes in the coding. I really like that reading of it too.
I love the idea of this. What this documentary communicated to me was a sort of bridge between the AI and humanity, and especially that's so well expressed in music. And here you have three musicians taking technology and making it human in a way. That idea really struck me while I was watching this. Riel, talk about how this idea strikes you.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I think going into this, very much viewed AI as like another, which I think science fiction sort of has promoted through, throughout, even beyond film history. I think, like, from very early beginnings of storytelling, this idea of a sentient being, or humans creating this thing that was like us but not quite us. I went into this thinking, considering AI in that way, and I think the idea that Kenrick speaks to in the film is that it's our soul. It is the accumulation of all of our knowledge and our ideas. It is us. And so it being human or not, I mean, it is a result of human activity and ideas. And looking at the output and finding humanity in that, I guess, I think, is a fascinating journey for artists to take. And watching YACHT take, thousands of words on a page and pull the things from there that felt meaningful to them, or human to them, or at least what they thought would communicate human feelings and ideas to people. Yeah, I don't know. I think that is the most fascinating part of the intersection of using machine learning in the application of art. So it's all human. I mean, it's just different, just a different way of processing or applying our data, I guess.
I love that idea you mentioned there about othering of technology, like thinking about the machines in Metropolis, or just the concept of the golden calf, the way that the robot is going to replace humanity, or is it going to be part of humanity? Is it part of making us better, or is it part of taking us away from humanity? That's interesting.
Yeah, I think we are the things that we make, and they've certainly. There's a lot of questions and debates around the data we're inputting into these algorithms, and in order to create new ideas, simply basing off the past isn't necessarily going to yield new ideas. If you stick in, I think they did the thing where it was like they stuck in photographs of every philosopher in history to output another photo, like a new photo of a philosopher, and it's like, well, it's just going to look like everyone else that came before. And so we're sort of in the band this way too, is like, we are the things that make us up. So how can we create something new out of that, I think, is a big question.
Well, Sebastian, one of the things you guys did with this movie was create a brand new YACHT fan in me. I never heard of YACHT before, and after I watched the documentary, I listened to the entire record, and I was blown away by how great that record is.
Right, I think it's great.
All to put into it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great and unappreciated record, and I think that was one of the things that this project revealed to us was, we originally wanted the movie to come out maybe with the record or right after the record, but having some distance from it allowed us to investigate some of the, once it gets released and is maybe a little underheard. I think that's interesting as well. I think that says something about where the conversation is, that maybe this isn't even as controversial as we think, because AI is actually already here in such a real and pervasive way that we're not able to quite separate the difference between something that's made in collaboration with AI and our own lives that are already so deeply collaborating with AI that it doesn't. It's like saying this album was made by steam engine or something, right? Like that wouldn't move the needle all that much. But yeah, I think the record itself is great, and when they, in a lot of this tour, they're going to be playing it right after the movie, and so hopefully they have a similar, audience members have a similar experience to to you in terms of being able to just listen to the record beginning to end right after the movie, and have a newfound appreciation for it.